Imagine having a clear vision. How do you turn your dreams into actionable steps? And when things don't go as planned, how does your brain cope with setbacks? Is it possible to turn obstacles into opportunities? Welcome to the Neurolympics podcast, brought to you by Brains First, the company that helps you make better talent decisions powered by neuroscience. In today's episode, we're going to dive into the neuroscience behind planning and goal setting, equipping you with practical strategies how to set your goals right and stay on track to achieve them even when faced with challenges. And by the end of this episode, you're going to be amazed at the power of your brain and how it even embraces failure. But before we go into the episode, let me briefly introduce myself. I'm Lucy, I'm the host of the Neurolympics podcast, and I have a background in psychology and a master's degree in applied neuroscience. So I really love to take these brain insights and apply them to enhance workplace behaviors, to address current societal challenges, to drive innovation in the workplace, and to enhance performance in professional sports. That's what we do at Brains First, and that's what we talk about here at the Neurolympics podcast. So let's get the brain cells going and go right into the episode. In today's fast-paced environment, the demand for effective planning has skyrocketed. We try to balance everything, and we convince ourselves that we can multitask. But the reality is our brains aren't designed for it. And with the increase on our planning capabilities, this can really lead to a deadline stress and overwhelm. So how does the brain really handle this increased demand for planning? Well, just consider the complexity of finding housing nowadays, of buying a house, or of planning a vacation. This should be tasks that come easy, that are enjoyable. However, they can feel like monumental challenges. Sometimes it feels like we need to carve out an entire evening just to plan our time off. Now, planning is an essential function of the brain. It loves to be in control, it loves this feeling of control, and it loves to anticipate future events and behaviors in order to anticipate or predict expected outcomes. And this function of the brain, this desire to anticipate what's coming ahead, is really a brilliant function because this conserves a lot of mental energy. A phenomenon that we call in psychology uncertainty avoidance. And really what the brain is doing, it tries to predict ahead so it can avoid the anxiety or the unpleasantness that comes with not knowing what is ahead. So here's some advice for the workplace or some leadership advice. Whenever you're working with people, you want to make sure that you set really clear goals and that you regularly communicate your visions. This will not only ensure a reduce in anxiety and stress that comes from not knowing what is ahead, but it will ultimately reduce the cognitive load, so the energy, the effort you need to take to tackle these tasks even before a project starts, and it will ultimately boost motivation and commitment. But what happens if an outcome deviates from what the brain originally predicted? How does the brain handle if plans don't go as desired? Well, your brain is constantly tracking your actions and the outcomes of it, especially how the outcomes make you feel. And if something doesn't go as planned, you're going to feel disappointed, and this is completely okay and natural. Because what happens in your brain is, if an expected reward isn't met, your dopamine levels are going to drop. So what your brain is doing is it has this expected outcome. And if there is a mismatch between reality and the expected outcome, the dopamine levels drop. And this is called the negative prediction error. This really is the brain's way of saying something didn't go as expected. But here's the silver lining. Failure can be really beneficial for your brain. Why? Your brain isn't going to stick with this feeling of disappointment. What it wants to do is it wants to update its expected outcomes because it wants to learn and update its prediction so this mismatch of what it expects and what is actually happening doesn't happen again. And this is really a brilliant function of the brain because it ensures that you're not going to commit a mistake that easily again, and that you're going to adjust your behaviors the next time you're going to encounter a similar situation. Because what your brain is doing is it takes notice of contextual markers that led to a setback. And if you're facing a similar situation again, it remembers these cues. And it's kind of a way of your brain telling you, please don't do this again. And so you're unlikely to commit a mistake again. And we can take examples here in the workplace. For example, you're trying out a new strategy for a project and you have certain expectations of an outcome. Well, if the results don't yield what you expected, this is not going to feel great. However, you're going to learn from it. Your brain is going to make sure that you're going to change your strategy. Or if we take a friendship example, let's say you like to tease a friend in a very lighthearted way, and your friend usually really likes it and finds it funny, but today your friend is not liking it. He or she is not giving you a really happy response, but rather comes across as feeling hurt or feeling unhappy. Well, this is a signal to you that this positive outcome of your behavior that you expected isn't matched, that you maybe shouldn't engage in that behavior again. And in this sense, your brain is really taking track of the outcomes of your actions and then telling you whether you might have to consider to realign. So just remember, whenever you're experiencing another setback, feeling disappointed is okay, because it's a natural way of your brain telling you it hasn't matched its expected outcome. And embrace it, because you're going to learn from it. Your brain is going to make sure you're not as easily going to commit that mistake again. So now that we understand how the brain seeks to avoid uncertainty and strives for anticipation of future behaviors, let's shift our focus onto how you can effectively set your goals. And a really effective framework that has been extensively supported by the scientific literature is called SMART goals. You want to set SMART goals, and I'm going to tell you why and how you can set your goals in a really brain smart way. So the capital letters of SMART stand for 5 practical tips on how to set your goals right. And the first one is your goals should be specific. You need to add as much clarity as possible to your goal, because the more clear it is, the more easy it will be for your brain to plan ahead these actions it needs to engage in when you're pursuing your goal. So you want to make sure you're spending a lot of time dedicated to choosing your goal and then defining your goal. And when it comes to choosing your goal, I want to give you a practical advice. Many of us would say that easy goals will be most easily achieved. However, this is not really true from a brain perspective. Our brains like a good challenge. So you want to make sure that you are setting a goal that just feels a little bit out of your comfort zone. Because what you're going to do is you're going to engage neural circuits that will engage in arousal, and this will set you up for a higher performance and more motivation. Because ultimately, the most effective way for learning is to push our nervous system just a little bit out of our comfort zone. So here's an example. Don't say to yourself or to your colleagues, we want to improve customer experience. What does that mean? It's not really clear to me how to get to this goal. And here's the thing, if in theory you cannot meet that goal because it's just too unclear and there's nothing really specific behind it, you're not going to meet it in practice. What you rather want to do is you want to define your goal as, I want reported customer experience to enhance by 15% in the next quarterly cycle. I want to train my staff for personalized service, and I want to come up with a new feedback system to track customer experience. This is something really practical and something really specific. And now to make it even more specific, what you want to do is to note down these or define these verbal actions that you need to engage in order to pursue your goal. So if we take the example of the customer satisfaction enhancement, you could define, I want to gather feedback from customers via customer calls or via surveys. I want to analyze these surveys. I want to design effective feedback strategies. I want to train my staff for personalized service, and I want to monitor customer experience. And the more specific you get with these verb actions, the more you're setting up yourself to successfully reach and achieve your goal. Second, you want your goals to be measurable. In other words, you want to define a time frame you're going to pursue your goal. You can ask yourself 2 questions. First of all, how long will it take for my goal to be achieved? So you want to set like a time frame. And the second question is, how much time do you want to dedicate on a weekly and on a daily basis towards achieving your goal? And scientific literature shows us that an effective way of planning is to plan ahead the specificity of time engagement for 12 weeks. This just aligns with other common themes in society, like the seasonal change and holidays, so this quarterly cycle. And I want to give you an example. For example, you say, I want to enhance my personal well-being through engaging in mindfulness training. So you could specify, I'm going to do that for 12 weeks. And by the way, if your goal is going to take longer, no problem. We love long-term visions. We love long-term goals. However, you want to become specific for a short amount of time, because then you're not overloading your brain and you're going to make sure you stay effective with your focus. So 12 weeks is really working well. And then you're going to define, okay, each day I want to dedicate 10 minutes in the morning towards mindfulness practice or mindfulness journaling. And on a weekly basis, I want to spend time in nature, off screen and re-engaging with nature for 45 minutes. And then you also want to download, for example, one of these mindfulness apps like Calm or Headspace that allow you to track and monitor your progress. And here you want to define a specific goal. For example, after 12 weeks on a scale from 1 to 10, I want an increase of 1 point in my well-being score. So this is really measurable. This is really specific, and this will help your brain to achieve your goal and stay motivated during the process of achieving your goal. Third, you want your goals to be achievable. So you want to stretch yourself just a little bit, but keep it attainable. Because if your goals are too far out of reach, this is going to be really demotivating for your brain. And also large tasks can be overwhelming and lead to procrastination. So what you want to do is make your goals attainable. How can you do that? There's a psychological term called chunking. So you can take a larger goal and break it down into these smaller chunks, into these smaller goals on the way to your bigger goal. I'll give you an example. I do track and field athletics, and I have a goal that in the end of February, I want to participate in the national championships. However, this is still 4 months ahead, and this is a big goal. How do I get there? Well, I'm going to chunk my larger goal into smaller goals. In the next month, we're going to focus on conditioning training and strength training. So I'm going to define specific goals, like I want to level up my weights during weightlifting, for squats, for cleans by this X amount of weights. I want to run 8 times 300 meters in this amount of seconds. And then I go on to my next little goal. And this is, I want to make sure I'm recharging and resting well. So I want to sleep 8 hours every day. And then I have another smaller goal, and this is for the upcoming month, where we practice more on speed training and jumping training, that I want to, on a specific jumping task, I want to jump a certain amount of meters, or I want to improve on my speed in this certain amount of seconds. And this is going to make it really achievable. And what is chunking going to do to your brain? It's going to reduce the cognitive load, your mental energy you need to dedicate towards your goal, and it's going to make it really pleasurable also, because it's going to engage your reward system in the brain. Dopamine will spike whenever you're achieving a smaller goal. And you want to make sure on your way to a larger goal that you're going to engage your brain in these dopamine loops. So whenever you're achieving a smaller goal, your brain is going to be really, really happy. Dopamine is going to spike. However, that's not going to last long. So you want to make sure you have this consistency in achieving smaller goals. And this will ultimately make your goal more achievable, but also more enjoyable. So make sure you're enjoying the progress. You're celebrating these little steps along the way. Ultimately, it's more about the journey than the end success. The fourth point is you want your goals to be relevant, to be meaningful to you. Well, relevance lies in the eye of the beholder. What is relevant to you might not be relevant or meaningful to me, so this is really, really personal. However, that your goal feels relevant is very important because, first of all, it is going to boost your motivation and make you more committed towards your goal. It's just more enjoyable if you really feel your goal is part of a bigger picture of what you want to achieve or what you want to grow in. And also if it aligns with your values, for example. And if your goal doesn't feel that relevant to you, let's say you have to finish up a report at work and it really doesn't feel that relevant to you, I advise you to really reframe it. This is a psychological term. We also like to use you speak about it differently, you think about it differently so that it becomes relevant. You could, for example, say it's going to help me grow. It's going to make me learn. It's going to help my coworkers to make progress. It's ultimately going to boost the business. And why your goal should also be relevant is because it's going to ease the cognitive load. Anything that feels relevant to our brain will just come more natural and feel less of a hard work that you're actually doing. So you're going to more naturally engage in it. It's going to come more easy to you on the journey to pursue that goal. Thirdly, if a goal feels relevant to you, it's going to engage your brain's reward system again. It's really that anything that's enjoyable, that brings positive emotions along, is going to lead to dopamine spikes, especially if you have that throughout the journey, as I just said. This dopamine spike is really a way of your brain reinforcing behavior that feels purposeful. And fourthly, you're going to make, if your goal feels relevant, you're going to make it more easily through tough times, through challenges. Why is that? If something feels relevant to the brain, it's going to engage the brain areas that engage towards that goal more heavily. So during goal pursuit, a lot of areas in your brain are active. The prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for these higher order thinking processes. Then, for example, your hippocampus, which is responsible for memory formation. Then the anterior cingulate cortex that is responsible for error detection. So all of these brain areas that are making sure you're working towards your goal will be activated more. So they will work harder, you might say. And in that sense, this will keep your focus up through tough times and make it more easy to attain to your goal. So when your why is clear, when you really know why you're doing your goal, then your brain is going to push through the discomfort even harder because it knows the effort is going to be worth it in the long run. And lastly, you want your goals to be time-bound. Deadlines create a sense of urgency. And when something is urgent, your brain will prioritize it and it will stop procrastinating. And here's a practical tip. It's called the 2-minute rule to avoid overwhelm. And this was popularized by David Allen. And he says, anything that takes less than 2 minutes, you should do immediately. I often don't do it. For example, I often have these, or not often, but sometimes I do online shopping and I have these open Klarna payments. And then I think, okay, I need to pay it today. And I put it in my calendar. I literally put a time slot in my calendar. I put it on my to-do list, but it's going to take 1 minute. So why not do it right away or bringing out the trash? What really happens if you don't do these smaller tasks, it's going to accumulate your mental load because you might not consciously notice it, but anything that is in the back of your mind is going to consume your brain's energy. And this is precious energy that you could spend towards a more important task that you should prioritize. So really make sure to just get the things done. And also it will be more rewarding. So let's take the example of Christmas shopping. I think we're all doing it last minute. Well, if you don't, please let me know because then you're really a champ. But just imagine you would do it 2 weeks in advance. you would have 3 types of rewards instead of only one. The first reward is, well, you have that gift. You're really happy about having that gift. The second reward comes with avoiding the stress that comes with the last-minute shopping. And the third reward is just being happy about being ahead of schedule. So really make sure to plan your time well. It will be worth it, and it will help you succeed towards your goal pursuit. And goal setting is all about turning your vision into reality. And just remember, with every setback can be an opportunity for your brain to learn and grow. Ultimately, it comes down to effective strategies that will help you manage your goal pursuit and that will make it more achievable, but also enjoyable. Well, I hope that you could really take something away from this episode. I hope you enjoyed the content. Let me know in the comments section. Please leave any questions that you have, any insights, any remarks, comments. I would love to engage with you. And also, we would love to see you more frequently on the Neurolympics podcast. So please make sure to subscribe to any of our platforms. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. You'll find us under www.brainsfirst.com/podcast. And please make also sure to follow our socials. We're on Instagram and TikTok, updating regularly. So stay tuned and stay happy, stay healthy, everyone. Can't wait to see you next time on the Neurolympics podcast. Ciao, ciao.